Hello and welcome to News Round, where we do a recap of stories that made headlines during the week. Coming up, the National Assembly passes bill to extend the 2023 Appropriation Act supplementary budget. And the federal government says the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, PEBEC, has concluded its 120-day regulatory reform accelerator action plan to enhance ease of doing business. And President Bola Tinubu orders disbursement of 155 billion naira foodstuff purchase nationwide. He also approves delivery of 50,000 naira uplift grant each to 100,000 families per state for 3 months. Plus, President of Kenya, William Ruto, says he'll withdraw financial bill as death toll rises. And that's News Round in view. We'll begin with the National Assembly passing a bill for an act to amend the 2023 Budget and Supplementary Appropriation Act to further extend the implementation of the capital component of the December 31st, 2024. Both chambers passed the two executive bills after first and second readings and a closed-door session to review the president's requests. Meanwhile, the Senate has summoned a Guardian correspondent to its Committee on Information, Ethics and National Orientation to explain why disciplinary action should not be taken against him over an online publication on the purchase of a presidential jet, which it describes as false.
Following 2 weeks of recess, the National Assembly resumes a new legislative session, days after the passing of the former Deputy Controller of Customs, Mr. Etop Essien, who slumped during an interface with the House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts. A minute silence is observed in his honor.
Essien Etop Andrew, who died in the service of his fatherland, rest in perfect peace.
The predominant business of the day is contained in a correspondence by President Bola Tinubu, who is seeking an extension of the implementation of the capital component of the 2023 Appropriation Act and supplementary budget.
These bills, therefore, intend to further extend the implementation period of both acts and to allow for continued implementation for the maximum benefit of the country.
We should, in passing the budget, put a clause that those to be employed, the projects to be implemented are purely that of capital.
And we're extending the lifespan of the supplementary budget. The other issues of implementation are left to the executive.
Similarly, in the House of Representatives, the debate on the extension of the bills took a different turn when the minority leader, backed by his caucus, asked that the bills be stepped down and reviewed.
This process and procedure might not appear to be completely correct, and therefore I would suggest that the House leader steps down this bill, and then we go back to the drawing board.
I want to please urge and implore our members to please support this. It is to enhance the security of this country.
The House goes into an executive session to avert an escalation, after which there are no more opposing voices as the bills are passed.
Now, while it can be said that two budgets now run concurrently, the submission of the 2024 supplementary budget, as announced by President Bola Tinubu nearly a month ago, is now being awaited.
Back in the upper chamber, the controversial issue of the purchase of a presidential aircraft is raised.
To make it clear and to alert Nigerians that there is the presence of a fifth columnist and some other propagandists who are doing everything possible to destabilize this country and also destabilize the parliament.
We will look into issues that will benefit the governance of the country, irrespective of anticipatory blackmail. We will also take cognizance of the duties of Mr. President. If his vehicle is bad, we will repair the vehicle. If his plane is bad, we will approve money for the repair of the plane. So that is not an issue. There is nothing before us.
However, the matter apparently was not over as Senator Adiola Olamilekun draws the attention of the House to a publication in The Guardian which speculated that the purchase of a new presidential aircraft was the subject of an emergency sitting by lawmakers.
I will hereby request that the Guardian correspondent attached to the Senate should be invited by the committee to ask questions as to how it come by this story.
Those in support that Guardian reporter be invited for questions, and say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
The Senate President has given the committee 1 week to report back. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And Nigerian workers and indeed labor unions may have to wait for some more time to get the federal government's agreed national minimum wage. It's because the Federal Executive Council has stepped down consideration and deliberations on the memo of the new minimum wage to allow President Bola Tinubu more time for more consultation. The Minister of Information disclosed this while briefing State House correspondents on the decisions taken at the council meeting.
It's the first Federal Executive Council meeting after the administration marked its first year in office. In attendance are federal ministers and other members of the council. Once President Tinubu arrives, the meeting commences. About 3 hours later, some ministers arrive to outline key decisions taken. First is the decision on the new national minimum wage.
That memo was stepped down to enable Mr. President to consult further, especially with the state governors and the organized private sector, before he makes a presentation to the National Assembly.
Council also set up a committee to address the cholera outbreak in the country.
All of us as Nigerians have to lean in to make that happen. So Council took a position, and the President directed that this cabinet committee be put in to oversee what this emergency operations center led by the NCDC is doing, and for the resources to be provided so that we are complemented by the state governments as well.
A ministerial task force has also been set up to look into the acute malnutrition affecting over 1 million children in the country.
So we have $60 million, and that resource will be used to buy ready-to-use therapeutic foods. There are 3 manufacturers of ready-to-use therapeutic foods in Nigeria, and we would ensure that these are products that are bought locally. There are 1,200 sites for treatment, and I can give you the list of those sites in the states where children who are acutely malnourished will be attended to. So there are many elements in a multi-sectoral way that this administration is trying to do.
Council also approved a ban on the use of single-use plastics in all ministries, agencies and departments of the federal government.
If you look at the national policy on plastic waste management, which was adopted in 2020, it envisaged that by 2025, January 2025, some categories of plastics will be banned in Nigeria. And most of them are single-use. Plastic spoons, straws, PET bottles, pure water sachet, and so on and so forth. So what the federal government is doing is preparing the minds of Nigeria and leading by example.
The Federal Executive Council also considered plans to expand and refurbish 6 teaching hospitals across the country. This, they say, is to help expand the health infrastructure in the country. From the Presidential Villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
As though with economic matters, Nigerians from all walks of life assembled in the nation's capital for the presentation on the report for the regulatory reforms on the ease of doing business in Nigeria. At a town hall meeting organized by the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council in Abuja, Vice President Kashim Shettima says President Bola Tinubu's public sector reforms have achieved an 80% success rate. He made the announcement at the start of a 90-day regulatory reform accelerator involving various federal ministries, departments, and agencies.
This town hall meeting at the banquet hall of the State House, Abuja, focuses on enhancing the ease of doing business in Nigeria. Attendees include Vice President Kashim Shettima, Governor Inuwa of Gombe State, ministers, heads of MDAs, and private sector players. The event begins with a report highlighting the performance of ministries, departments and agencies in implementing the administration's regulatory reforms to ensure transparency and efficiency.
This particular data set will sit in the MDA performance ranking tab, and we'll start from the bottom. 4 of 36 MDAs achieved below 25% of activities. Now, 10 of 36 MDAs performed above 75%. I think this is quite commendable. Considering where we were at the end of 90 days, a lot of these agencies really doubled down and stepped up.
Our collective aspiration is that the reforms, along with the insight and learnings from this regulatory reform accelerator, will drive measurable impact for productivity and competitiveness across key sectors to improve the Nigerian business environment and support the economic initiatives of the government.
Some stakeholders here, however, believe there are still bottlenecks that need to be addressed.
Presently, the online platform that we use for filing and getting our certificates is totally down.
What is the framework for effective collaboration and tracking to see that the reforms that are happening at the national level are going to subnational level, especially the states?
The special advisor to the president on PEBEC, Mrs. Jumoke Oduwole, believes that addressing the trust deficit between the government and the private sector is vital.
Yes, to be candid, there are a lot of turf wars. Yes, to be candid, there's room for a lot more collaboration, which is why it takes presidential and very high level, the cabinet intervention, to make sure that the boots on the ground, the public officials and civil servants understand the importance of not being a gatekeeper, of collaborating and ensuring that we deliver on the cost. We bring down the cost of doing business in Nigeria. We bring down the time it takes to do business, and we make sure that it's transparent doing business in Nigeria.
While urging heads of MDAs to sustain the tempo, Vice President Shettima restates President Tinubu's commitment towards addressing the economic challenges in the country.
No matter the depth of the reforms we introduce, our goals will remain out of reach unless our ministers and their ministries, departments and heads of parastatals and agencies of government function at their base and align seamlessly with our agenda. I am therefore excited to share that our public sector reforms have achieved a collective score of over 80% at the beginning of the 90-day regulatory reform accelerator. I want to thank our ministers and heads of parastatals for doing an awesome job.
The key takeaway from this meeting is that achieving a higher ranking in ease of doing business in Nigeria requires collective effort from all stakeholders. From the presidential villa, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
And when News Round returns, President Tinubu urges governors to meet targets on food securities. Detail after the break. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Well, President Bola Tinubu has approved the immediate rollout of a national construction and household support program to cover all geopolitical zones in the nation in a bid to increase agricultural productivity, strengthen the economy, as well as provide urgent financial relief for Nigerians. Speaking during the National Economic Council meeting on Thursday, President Tinubu urged state governors to work together to meet the needs of citizens, stating that he's willing to provide the needed support to ensure that Nigerians are relieved of hardship.
Governors, deputy governors, some ministers and other members of the National Economic Council gather in the council chamber of the State House for their monthly meeting. The Vice President, Kashim Shettima, the chair of the council, arrives and the meeting commences. About an hour later, President Bola Tinubu joined the meeting. A statement by his special advisor on media, Ajuri Ngelale, after the meeting states that the president approved the immediate rollout of the National Construction and Household Support Program to cover all geopolitical zones in the country in a bid to increase agricultural productivity, strengthen the economy, as well as provide urgent financial relief for Nigerians. Items under the program include road infrastructure projects such as Sokoto-Badagry Highway and the Trans-Saharan Highway, one-off allocation of 10 billion naira to states and the Federal Capital Territory for the procurement of buses, delivery of 50,000 naira uplift grant each to 100,000 families per state for 3 months, provision for labor unions and civil society organizations, deployment of 155 billion naira for the purchase and sale of assorted foodstuff to be distributed across the nation. The president also urged state governors to work together to meet the needs of citizens, stating that he is willing to provide the needed support to ensure that Nigerians are relieved of hardship. When the meeting came to an end, 3 governors and 2 ministers appeared to outline the resolutions reached. The Minister of Finance provides details of the excess crude account and other special accounts of government.
As of now, there's basically $500,000 in that account, $500,000 US. The stabilization account has 28.7 billion naira, and the Natural Resources Development Fund has 53.9 billion naira.
He also touched on payments to vulnerable Nigerians through the social register.
That process has been strengthened, and it now needs speeding and scaling up given the situation in the country as far as inflation and elevated prices. And the governors agreed that they would accept the verified register, which they themselves have verified down to the ward level, that could be used.
The Minister of Agriculture said Council was briefed on interventions by the federal government.
I also briefed Council on the interventions on the 42,000 metric tons, of which all had been delivered to all the states, and then 20 trailers of rice per state. And then we have also released over 1,500,000 bags of fertilizer, which is under evacuation by the state governments.
NEC also considered and approved the nomination of board members made up of governors from each of the 6 geopolitical zones for the Niger Delta Power Holding Company of Nigeria. From the Presidential Villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
After security now, there appears to be a new commitment between the federal government and Northwest governors to tackle the insecurity challenge in the Northwest region of the country. The Vice President and governors of the Northwest at the opening of the Northwest Peace Security Summit in Katsina agreed that the time has come to drop political affiliation and join hands to end the herd of farmers clashes, banditry and general insecurity in the country.
The Northwest Peace and Security Summit holding in Katsina State parades the largest number of high-profile dignitaries and citizens under one roof in recent times. From the Vice President of Nigeria to former President Muhammadu Buhari, serving and former governors from the region, members of the diplomatic corps, security chiefs and traditional rulers. The event opens with goodwill messages from the Ambassador of Germany, the UNDP resident representative in Nigeria, and other foreign partners, and they all express optimism for a new roadmap for peace in the region.
This summit is only the culmination of efforts which have been done in the past, and it's also already the beginning for a new cooperation in order to bring peace to the region.
Peace, security, and development are like the 3 musketeers, inseparable and equally important. Without peace, development stagnates. Without development, peace remains a distant dream.
All of us think that if Nigeria makes it, we all will make it together. Not only our sub-region, but the entire continent. And if Nigeria failed to do it, we will all fail to get there.
And to underscore the importance of this summit, the Minister of Defense acknowledges the efforts of the military in ending banditry in the north, but agrees special attention must be given to armed forces to bring the fight to a conclusion, a position the Sultan of Sokoto agrees with.
The armed forces of Nigeria, and indeed the security agencies of Nigeria, are committed in ending insecurity, not only in the Northwest, but in the country.
We will be the ones to work for this and end these problems if we so desire. Nobody will come from somewhere to work for us. Nobody will come from the moon to solve these problems. We must solve our problems.
The common challenge facing the 7 states in the Northwest include herder-farmer clashes, kidnapping for ransom, cattle rustling, mismanagement of public funds, and illicit activities including drug trafficking and weapon smuggling.
To facilitate regional cooperation, we must establish, and we have established a Northwest Governors Forum that meets regularly to discuss our everyday challenges and coordinate our efforts. These forums serve as a platform for sharing ideas, monitoring progress, and holding each other accountable.
The Vice President and Special Guest of Honor, Mr. Kashim Shettima, then reels out federal government plans for the region.
To build pragmatic solutions to our security compromises, we are strengthening collaborations among the services and other security agencies to ensure a unified approach. One of the non-kinetic interventions we have rolled out is the Fulako Resettlement Initiative. We believe it is a timely solution to address some of the root causes of disputes and insecurity in the Northwest.
The submission here is that with proper coordination of the Northwest Regional Security System, coupled with financial backing from the federal government and other practical steps that are being initiated, the decades of insecurity in the region will be on the path of being reversed in no distant time.
And still with security matters, a day after putting health providers on alert, the Rivers State government says the prime suspect in the explosion that rocked Port Harcourt, the state capital, on Tuesday has been found. The Rivers State Commissioner for Health, Deze Ore, says the suspect was found at the Rivers State University Teaching Hospital, formerly known as the Brathwaite Memorial Specialist Hospital. Take a listen.
For more than half a year, the political crisis in Rivers State has continued to take different shapes, from the fire at the State House of Assembly to the attempt at impeachment, the resignations from the executive cabinet to the current unrest over local government administration. These developments have brought about increased security risk. The situation reached a peak on Tuesday, June 25, when an unidentified man detonated an explosive near the luxury presidential hotel on Aba Expressway in the heart of Port Harcourt. Fortunately, the explosive device, said to be a dynamite, detonated on the attacker, making him a victim of his actions. The government promptly instructed medical practitioners to be vigilant for such a patient, while the police launched a search for the suspects. And within 24 hours, a prime suspect was identified at the Rivers State University Teaching Hospital, located near the government house.
He is stable, and the police is doing their own part with carrying out the necessary investigation.
Hours later, Governor Siminalayi Fubara is receiving on courtesy visit the Senate Committee on Privatization, led by Senator Orji Kalu, to the government house in Port Harcourt.
In the street of Rivers, everybody is saying that the governor and the former governor are quarreling. These things happen sometimes, but I would like to plead with you and plead also with the former governor that you people should take the interest of your people utmost in your heart.
Commenting on the security concern in the state, Governor Fubara reveals that the intention of the attacker was to blow up the presidential hotel to justify the call for a state of emergency in the state.
While they are aware that you were here, there was an attempt to create heavy problem. In fact, there was a plan to dynamite the presidential hotel because you two were there. But this God that we serve it happened that the man who was trying to do it, it happened just a few seconds as blew his hand off.
He urges the committee members, some of whom are former governors, to advocate for truth and address the crisis in Rivers State.
We end news round in Kenya, where President William Ruto has conceded to pressure, saying he will not be signing the controversial finance bill. He announced this at the media briefing in Nairobi after weeks of protests from mainly youths demonstrating against taxes the bill had imposed. President Ruto said the decision was also accepted by the lawmakers who had passed the bill on Tuesday. At least 13 protesters are dead and dozens injured as police opened fire on protesters. The Parliament building was breached, a section set ablaze, and ceremonial mace symbolizing the authority of the legislature was stolen as demonstrations against new tax proposals escalated. In an address to Tuesday evening, President William Ruto warned he would do everything to curb attempts to undermine the security and stability of the country. And that's News Round for the week. Thank you for watching. Vladi Williams. Bye.